Hello and welcome to 10 Lenses. I'm Adam Thomas, and this is the second session of our 10-week class. Today we're going to talk about the layout of a page of the Bible. Last week we talked about translations. You can still participate in that session by going to its link via the intro page or a link at the bottom of this page. So the layout of the page of a Bible has changed a whole lot since the Bible was written. Modern Bibles have many different takes on the way a page should be laid out. We're going to talk about a few of the conventions that have sort of stuck over time. And the reason that I want to do that in this session is to see if we can start to strip away some of the things that have really started to influence our interpretation of the Bible over time. We're going to start with probably the most recent edition of these things, and that is headings. The Bible didn't have headings when it was first written. Those headings are completely editorial. They're put in there by the publisher of whatever Bible translation you have. Perhaps your Bible doesn't have them. Not all of them do, but most of them do have headings. If you look on the page that we see here, you'll notice that I've circled the headings that are on this particular page. This is a page from the of certain edition of the King James Bible. It's a few chapters of the Gospel of Matthew. And you'll notice these headings are fairly innocuous, right? The call of the disciples and so on and so forth. Most of the time headings are like this. They just point you to what's about to happen in the text. Every once in a while, though, a publisher will put in headings that seem to really sway the way you should be interpreting the text. If your Bible does that, I would suggest that you really try to ignore those headings. Read the passage for yourself. Make your own interpretive decisions before you let the editors or the publisher of your particular edition of the Bible really sway the way you're thinking. Okay, so let's move from the headings to a much, much earlier addition to the page of the Bible, and that's the chapter breaks. The chapter breaks are fairly recent if you consider how old the Bible is, and that they appeared in around the 13th century, sometime during the 1200s. The chapter breaks are great because they allow us to take a biblical book and break it into large chunks. These large chunks are really wonderful. The smaller chunks that we break the Bible into, which we call verses, are a little bit less helpful, and I want to explain why. But first, the verses are even newer than the chapters. They appeared in around the 1550s after the printing press, once the Bible started to be really mass-produced. They put in the verses, and these verses, are little tweet-sized bites of the Bible. The reason that chapters are great, well, verses not so much, is that the addition of verses to the Bible has really, really swayed the way people read the text. There's this really awful way of reading the text, which is to read it one verse at a time, to pull a verse out of context, to build an entire ideology, an entire theology around a very, very tiny portion of the text, one verse. This is only possible because we've cut up the text into these little tiny bits. So I would really encourage you when you're reading the Bible to try to ignore those little numbers, at least on your first read through. I don't think the writers of the Bible ever envisioned their writings to be broken up into so many little pieces. So when we read, we should really try to honor the whole story that these writers are telling, and not just pull little tiny bits out of context. Okay, so we've talked about the headings, we've talked about the chapters, we've talked about the verses. I want to talk about just a couple other little things. Notice on our page that quite a bit of the page is in red ink, and the rest of it is in black ink. I'm not really sure when this convention came about to have the words of Jesus in red and the rest of the text in black, but this is one of my big pet peeves. I really hate this. The reason that I don't like the words of Jesus being in red and everything else being in black is because it's really inauthentic to the text. The entire gospel is the gospel of Jesus Christ, not just the words that he speaks in the text. If you think about it, with Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John running behind Jesus, switching back and forth between black and red, it's just kind of silly. So if your Bible has a red text for Jesus, that's fine. If you like the red text, that's fine too. But if you're going to get a new Bible, I would really encourage you to find one that doesn't have red text, because it really does make us sort of weigh one part of the story more than the other, even though the entire thing, as I said, is the gospel of Jesus Christ. Okay, the last thing I want to talk about isn't on this page to my right. Your right? Whatever. And that's some Bibles, especially study Bibles, oftentimes have annotations. Usually on the bottom, maybe bottom quarter of the page, you get a lot of text about this verse points you back to this verse, and so on and so forth. Those kind of Bibles are wonderful. They make the page really busy, and sometimes it's hard to find the actual text of the Bible on a page like that. If you get a little overwhelmed when you open up your Bible and it has those annotations, you might want to find one that doesn't, just so that your reading can be a little bit more calm, a little more peaceful. Go find the annotations later when you're really doing some hardcore studying. So that's a little bit about the evolution of a page of the Bible. It's really important to have the layout of our page of the Bible in mind when we're studying, because of all of the different ways it's changed over time. So in the rest of this session, we're going to look at some more examples of the Bible, the text with and without headings and chapters and all that stuff. So check out the prompts at the bottom. Check out some of the examples that I've got linked, and so on and so forth. I want to leave you today with an image of what a sporting event would look like about 1,000 years ago, before we had chapters and verses. So thank you for watching 10 Lenses. We'll see you next week.